Hello, I'm Chrissy Seaton and welcome to my channel. I guess the question that we often ask, we should be asking, is does modesty spell dignity? Does modesty create respect? Well, I happen to believe it does. And I'm going to tell you a little story that I experienced not that long ago when I was in Brisbane, our capital city of Queensland, and in the main shopping mall in the centre of the city, I was sitting down for a moment taking a rest. And for some reason or other, I noticed this young woman walking by or coming towards me and walking by. And this young lady, I think, would have been around the age of between 18 to 21. It's a little hard to tell, but she was young. And I was almost transfixed by how beautiful she looked and how she carried herself. She was dressed modestly. She had a nice straight skirt on that covered her knees, was about mid-calf. She had matching shoes and handbag. She had a very nice shirt, all colour coordinated, and matching, I think I said matching handbag and shoes. And her hair was just simply coiffed back in a coordinated coloured bow. So natural, a little bit of makeup, not very much. But she had a carriage, a presence about her that stood out. And I noticed other people were looking as well. She was just quietly, confidently walking down the mall, tending to her own business, whatever that may be, completely unaware of the attention that she had drawn, the nice attention she had drawn. There was a lady sitting next to me on the bench and I wasn't even aware that she was sort of there, and she sort of said, I guess to me, isn't it lovely to see young women walking around beautifully dressed, modestly dressed, which took the words out of my mouth, because that's basically what I was thinking, and I agreed with her. And she went on to say, just take a notice at the people that are looking at her. And I did. I noticed that there were men and women looking at her, fleeting glances at her, but respectfully. It was like, oh, lovely young woman, or it wasn't anything disrespectful, leering or otherwise. It was people just like this lady and myself sitting on the bench thinking how lovely she looked. Now, she wasn't a raving film star beauty, but she was dressed in a classical manner, modestly, carried herself in a dignified manner, and the glances were respectful. They weren't leering in any way. So it was an approving look. She stood out from the crowd in comparison to the other young women around about her age that were in this mall. Now, it's a very busy mall, open mall. She stood out because of her modesty and her behaviour, how she carried herself. Now, when you compared her to some other women, as I said, approximately her age, and you noticed that they were, well, there's only one word for it really, and that's called flashing the flesh. And it was abundantly clear and obvious, visible. It wasn't nice. You couldn't compare it to how this other young woman looked. And let me tell you, the glances that these women that were flashing the flesh were getting certainly were not respectful. They were like a bit of head shaking and how little can one go out in and still be considered, not to be breaking the law, so to speak. So it really impressed me that the glances she received were you couldn't call them anything but complimentary in the nicest sort of a way. I mean, she did stand out simply because she stood out as different from all the rest, but in all the right sort of ways. And this, I couldn't get this out of my mind, and it's been a few days since I was down there in Brisbane and this happened, but I thought it was important to make a video about this because what I saw there, and I'm a very good people watcher. I like to watch people in a nice sort of a way, and this same reason, that young woman stood out because of her dignity, her courage, how beautifully groomed she was. It probably wasn't expensive clothes or anything, but she was dressed nicely and respectably. And the attention she received was likewise respectful and approving and how shall I say, complimentary, but in the very nicest way. So I guess what I want to say through this video is to young women out there and to their mothers, look, don't encourage your daughters to go out there disrespectfully clothed, flashing too much skin. And let me tell you, there are some people who shouldn't be flashing a lot of skin. We haven't all got hourglass figures, or we haven't all got a perfect body shape, etc. There are lots of reasons why we should be modest in how we dress, apart from the fact that it is a good and righteous thing to do. So if you are going to go out scantily clad with all manner of flesh hanging out and on view, first of all, it's extremely disrespectful to God. It is equally disrespectful to yourself, and it is certainly disrespectful and negligent towards others. I don't happen to believe in that theory that a woman can walk up the street wearing nothing and men should just ignore. It's got women's dress and behaviour has nothing to do with how others perceive her. Well, you're wrong. You're wrong. Sorry, but you are. Have some self-respect. It starts with you. If you're going to dress in an unruly manner, scantily clad, then obviously you're saying, well, I don't really care, I'm not going to hide anything, I'm just going to show it all. Then how can you possibly expect others to respect you and treat you in a dignified manner? So please be careful about what you clothe your body in and how you behave when you're in public. That young lady attracted lots of attention, but nice, good attention. It was, oh, wow, how nice that young woman looks. How respectful. She was modest. She had a blouse that covered down to her elbows. She had a shirt, shirt collar neck, lovely blouse on. She looked beautiful. Classic beauty, classic grooming. But she stood out, and yet she herself isn't someone that you would have called an absolute raving beauty queen to look at. But it was how she behaved, how she carried herself, how she covered herself. And that young lady would have probably been shocked if she'd have realised how many nice, noticeable attention she got, but in the nicest way, respectful way. You know, even some older men looked and you could almost read their minds and think, oh, I hope my son brings home a nice lady like that, you know, or you know, people, I can read minds, well, not literally, but I can read a crowd and read expressions that people have. It comes from years of being a nurse, and when someone tells you, no, I haven't got any pain, you can tell on their face that they're in extreme pain. They're not that good at hiding it always. It's the same thing. Emotions and impressions, I can read pretty well on people. And you know, it was a fleeting incident. It was not more than, you know, probably 15 seconds or so. But that young woman left an impression on my mind, and I certainly know she would have left an impression on other people's mind for all the good reasons, for all the wholesome reasons. So please, I appeal to young women, mothers and fathers out there, talk to your daughters about this. Talk to them about how important it is that they respect themselves, respect the body God gave them. They can still be beautiful and fashionable and be modest at the same time. It's a right that they have, and someone needs to explain that to them, that, you know, your body is yours, and, you know, guard it well, clothe it appropriately. It doesn't mean you have to be an old howdy-dowdy frump. It doesn't mean that at all. It just means being mindful of how valuable you are to God and how valuable you are to yourself and your family, and think about what, before you leave the house, you know, what manner of dress have you got? Now, I always say, listen, you never know when the Mashiach's going to come. When I leave the house, I like to make sure I'm clothed in a manner that I would be respectful if the Mashiach arrived right now. So think of it like that. Think that, you know, if a king arrives suddenly in your presence, that you wouldn't be embarrassed about how you're clothed. It doesn't take a lot of money to clothe yourself respectfully and modestly. Probably costs less than it is to keep up with the scanty bits of material that are sold these days. So please, young women and mothers, teach your daughters to be dignified. They command respect when they enter into a public area, or even the school grounds or the workplace. If they are respectful about their body and their behaviour, it automatically flows through that those around them will follow as well. They will be respectful. They will be discerning in knowing that you're not a person that can be trifled with, that you know, that you have dignity and grace and how you conduct yourself. They won't get any false impressions that they might have going on in their mind. And you're only going to attract good attention, people that are going to think, well, that's a nice, wholesome, modest young person. So please, girls and mothers, be mindful of this. It is important. It's important for your daughter. Please take care, and God bless.